Hello and welcome to today's 5-in-1 Mayani Talks. Yes, it's the first one of this beautiful month. I have a new topic to share with you, which I honestly thought this month was going to have us delving deeply into the journey that seed beads have taken across the globe. And there is a little bit of that. We will touch upon that slowly as we build up into November, which is where we'll explore that in even more detail. But this month is just a bit of a look at glass seed beads and where they sit within the current concept of luxury jewelry and where they sit within our current worldview and the values that we hold. So I have 5 fantastic facts to share with you today. Let's kick off with fact number 1. Now, traditional luxury jewelry, many of us will think of in terms of gold, silver, and precious gemstones, and that's no matter what cultural background we're from, that is typically what we have all been led to believe is luxury jewelry. Now, interestingly, if you go back beyond the time during which this change happened, when we started to see gold, silver, and precious stones as luxury, when we go back beyond that, going back as far as 4,000 years ago, which is actually when glass seed beads originated, it was a very different picture. So about 4,000 years ago, glass seed beads came into existence in Egypt, India, and ancient Mesopotamia. Of course, the actual technique involving wrapping glass around a mandrel was developed in Egypt. And as time went on, very quickly actually, between the Egyptians creating this technique and glass seed beads being manufactured, Venice and India became the key centers of the world when it comes to glass seed bead production. Now, back in that day, they were not only seen as a form of currency, so they were incredibly luxurious. They had a very high status in society. They were not only traded with as currency, they were also used in the creation of all sorts of beautiful adornments for royalty, all the way from royalty, nobility in particular. So they were very luxurious. Going back beyond the time at which this change took place and we started seeing gold and silver and precious gemstones as more luxurious. So that's fact number 1. Fact number 2, when it comes to glass seed beads in comparison to gold and silver and gemstone jewelry, of course, glass seed beads are cheaper, yes, to work with, but they're also less hazardous. They involve less heavy resources in the creation process. There is no mining involved when using glass seed beads, which of course is heavily involved when you use gold, silver, and precious gemstones. And of course, wherever there is mining, there is environmental destruction of ecosystems, habitats, wildlife, be it a threat of extinction. So none of those ties are associated with glass seed beads. Glass seed beads have a much gentler legacy. I say gentler because fact number 3, many people may not be aware. When it comes to gold and silver and precious gemstones, we're much more aware that there's a lot of unethical practices surrounding them. There's a lot of exploitation throughout their history of those particular materials. But when it comes to glass seed beads, there's much gentler legacy. However, there was, to a degree, particularly in the colonial era, a degree of exploitation when it came to glass seed beads. But typically speaking, seed beads were seen as a fair form of trade. So they were, their legacy, their heritage is much gentler and not as deeply associated with things like human rights abuse and mass destruction of the ecosystems in our planet, and alongside the exploitation. They're not as tied to any of the unethical practices. They're not as tied to that as gold, silver, and gemstone jewelry is, because of the history of those particular materials, because of the fact that they became a much more, I guess, powerful way of demonstrating your wealth and your status. And they became, so glass seed beads kind of fell to the background and weren't seen as luxurious anymore once we came across these particular materials. They kind of just took to the forefront and they just shot right up there with being the best way to show your power and wealth. And unfortunately, with that came a lot of this exploitation, human rights abuse, as mentioned before. Fact number 4, community and heritage. So when it comes to glass seed beads, because we have a longer history, a longer relationship, a more ancient relationship with these particular types of beads, they have a lot of cultural significance, and not just in any one particular culture. Because of the trade associated with glass seed beads, because they were seen as a form of currency as long ago as 4,000 years ago, they spread across the globe quite significantly. Pretty much every single culture has a tie to glass seed beads. I love that fact because it means that glass seed beads have a very beautiful unifying quality about them. And perhaps that is why, no matter what background individuals come from, I find no end of people admiring and adoring the pieces of jewelry I create using glass seed beads. And it's not just my work, of course. Any glass seed bead artisan will notice that their work captivates and captures the attention of people from all walks of life, from all sorts of cultural backgrounds, no matter their heritage, because it's almost like it's a global heritage. It's almost like glass seed beads are part of our global shared heritage, and I love that about them. So that is fact number 4. And building on fact number 4, if you were not aware, majority of these cultural art forms and the use of glass seed beadworks or beadwork traditions are actually preserved by women. And women have basically been the key reason why many of these beadwork traditions have been preserved across many culturs. We've got several, the Maasai tribes in Kenya, we've got the Filipino women, we've got in the Philippines, we've got Zimbabwean women, Indian women, women across the globe preserving beadwork traditions through their what is seen as domestic craft. But it's actually truly artistry. It is an artisan craft work. It's an artisan skill that these women possess. It's not something that they do without any form of expertise or precision or the level of skill that an artisan who works with gold, silver or gemstones would have. They have the same caliber, I would argue, of skill as those artisans, but they're just not recognized as artisans. What they're doing, these women using glass seed beads, is seen more as craft, which I think is a very unfair representation and mislabeling of what is true artistry. So yes, they are typically at the forefront of preserving beadwork traditions, and they're the reason why many of these beadwork traditions still exist today. And they do it for many reasons. Women artisans tend to use glass seed beads not just to preserve their culture and their heritage and those narratives and traditions, that skills that have been passed down from generation to generation, but also as a viable form of income for them as well. So they create pieces to sell, to earn money, to support their young families. Fact number 5, I particularly strongly agree with this, and I wonder what you think about it. But if we're going to look to the future of luxury jewelry, I think it's important for us to question what luxury jewelry should look like. Should it just be based upon the value of the materials that we actually use to create those pieces, or should it go deeper than that? And I would argue that the future of luxury jewelry does go deeper than that. It's important when we label a piece of jewelry as luxury for us to go deeper than just the surface level value of the materials that are woven into that piece or used to create that piece, and to actually question whether that piece of jewelry that's been created not only has materials that are of high quality, but is sustainable, is actually showing care for the environment around us, is actually something that we can continue to make with without damaging our planet any more than we already have, whilst preserving it so that we can continue to live on it for many, many centuries and generations to come. And also to question whether the pieces that we are looking at as luxury jewelry are actually tied to narratives we want to continue to share and celebrate. Many traditional forms of heritage jewelry are steeped in old narratives which were very oppressive to women, very overpowering. The pieces of jewelry not particularly comfortable, not designed with comfort in mind at all. I mean, seed beads on the other hand are very lightweight. They're cheaper, yes, but they're lightweight. They allow you to be much more flexible and fluid in your artistry than you can be with much more rigid materials like gold and silver and gemstones. So I welcome you to share your thoughts with me in response to 2 questions I have for you today. The first question is whether you actually know where all of the materials in the pieces of jewelry you wear come from. That's an important one, because we can typically buy jewelry and we typically buy it because it's beautiful. As women, we look at it, we say, oh, it's beautiful. And we typically stop there. We don't necessarily, I'd like to think we are doing this more now, because I have seen some examples of it, not many, but some examples locally. But I'd like to think we'd ask ourselves, where does this piece of jewelry come from? Where do the materials in this piece of jewelry come from? I think that's particularly important to ask, because I myself was guilty of never asking it. When I was younger, I would see a piece of jewelry, love it, I would buy it, invest in it, and later on I'd find that bits of that jewelry would either fall apart, tarnish, fray, and it's because I hadn't really looked to ask the questions like, what are the fixtures and fittings made of? Is this actually going to give me green ears if I wear it? but which does happen to many of us women, and it seems like we just accept this. But I think it's important that we ask ourselves, what are these fixtures and fittings made of? In my case, I use stainless steel because it guarantees me, as far as possible, that you will not have an allergic reaction, not develop a metal allergy in the future, not have any of the unpleasantness that happens when your piece of jewelry tarnishes, discolors, starts rusting, any of that, you don't including the green ears. We get rid of all that. So do you know where the materials come from? And when it comes to the actual beads, for example, do you know where those beads actually come from? Are they glass beads? Are they plastic beads? Because plastic seed beads do exist. So it's important for you to question the materials that exist in your pieces of jewelry and whether or not you actually know where those materials come from. If they are precious metal work pieces of jewelry that you own, do you know where that precious metal has come from? How it was sourced? Was it sourced responsibly? Do you know where the gemstones have come from? Of course, we see a lot of designers now working with recycled gold and recycled silver, which is wonderful. Also working with vintage or upcycled high quality gemstones. I think that's lovely too. We're using what already exists, not digging or mining for more. So I love that, and I think it's important for us to become more conscious as consumers and to ask these questions. So that's my first question. Do you know where the materials from the jewelry, in the jewelry that you wear, actually come from? And my question number 2 is, do you see beadwork more as craft, as culture, or as luxury? I ask that question because for me it's all three. I think we need to stop calling it craft because it is actually artistry. It is an artisan skill that is involved in using these beads to create works of art. I think we need to stop mislabeling it and underrating it, and therefore undervaluing works that involve the use of glass seed beads. So there we go. First of all, I see it as art. Secondly, I believe it is about culture. It's about preserving a culture that we have all got a link to that dates back 4,000 years. I mean, that is amazing to preserve that through working with a material that we have all in some way, shape or other bonded with over 4,000 years. That is an impressive legacy, and a gentle one, as we mentioned before as well. And thirdly, I believe it is luxury because once upon a time, before gold and silver and gemstones entered the picture, we saw these as a form of currency. They were that luxurious to us, that valuable to us. So yes, I welcome your thoughts. If you're enjoying the content, of course, please feel free to subscribe. I produce one video a week, so hit the notification bell so you'll know when the next one is out. And I welcome you on this journey with me of becoming more conscious about our jewelry, because for too long for me, it was an afterthought. And it is through being an afterthought and through me falling down through those hurdles of loving pieces of jewelry, seeing them fall apart, loving pieces of jewelry, finding them uncomfortable and painful, seeing green ears, all of that journey that I've been through myself, feeling disconnection with my heritage, wanting to reconnect myself. Several reasons why I have become more consciously aware of my jewelry, made it less of an afterthought, and I encourage you and welcome you to do the same. And this particular topic is not one I have actually consciously explored before, so I'm exploring it with you here fresh and new. It is something some of these ideas and thoughts that are coming through and information coming through, I have been subconsciously aware of, and I have had a subconscious deep affinity to glass seed beads without ever questioning, because I didn't question why I had that, but I am questioning it now, and without consciously realizing why I had that affinity too. So hopefully you've got some insights for yourself today if you find yourself drawn to beadwork and wondering why is it, if you have asked yourself that question, or if you haven't, maybe this is waking you up to ask that question. Why is it you're drawn to them? You may understand that a bit better now. I welcome your thoughts below. And I'm going to end on our beautiful tagline. I love my tagline because, as I mentioned, for me, it's for many years, many decades, been an afterthought. Because your jewelry should always be more than just an afterthought. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye for now.